Alrighty guys, hello and welcome back to the show. I hope you guys had an amazing weekend, spent some time with family, friends, away from work, just relaxing. Today we're going to be looking at the Aeon Commander. It's the last in our Commander comparison video, so let's get into it. Okay, as far as base stats go, the Aeon Commander is not very much different than any of the other three commanders we've looked at. 100 damage per second, build power, build range, etc., all the same. The only difference is going to be that it has 11,000 HP at the start, so it is ranks third in starting HP comparing to the other four commanders. Let's get into the upgrades. Starting off with the right arm, we are presented with our first kind of unique upgrade to the Aeon Commander. That's going to be the sensor upgrade. It costs 350 mass and 5,000 energy. Gives you an 80 range omni sensor and 80 additional vision range. So it's basically like a mobile radar / perimeter monitoring system that can give you a pretty good idea of what's actually going on in the map in a circle or radius around your commander. So this can help you out in some situations where if you're like me, you don't do a great job at air scouting, even though I know it's something that I need to work on, and you're pushing forward with your army and your commander, and there's a fire base out there. It can allow you to see stuff like that. It can also allow you to see other units that might be coming in to ambush said commander. And the fact that it's only 350 mass, which is relatively cheap, I think it's one of the cheapest upgrades that we've actually looked at, makes it pretty good bang for the buck. Overall, I find it pretty viable, but you have to sacrifice gun speed in order to get this, which leads us to our second upgrade, which is gun speed, the quantum accelerator. So the Aeon Commander splits their gun upgrades into two different upgrades. So instead of combining speed and range or speed and damage like the other commanders, it's split into various upgrades. This costs 500 mass and 15,000 energy. It doubles your fire rate. Just unlike other commanders, it doesn't give you the actual range upgrade. So we'll talk a little bit about what I think about how the Aeon Commander has these upgrades split. But for now, let's just go ahead and present the statistics and we'll get to some of my 2 cents on this in the conclusion. Moving on to the back, the personal shield generator is our first upgrade in this slot. There are 2 levels here. The first one costs 1,300 mass and 35,000 energy, and it costs 150 energy per second to operate. And it gives you an 8,000 health shield, regens at 30 HP per second. The second one costs 2,300 mass, 123,750 energy, and gives you, it costs 250 energy per second to operate, and it gives you a 25,000 HP shield and regens at 32 HP per second. So for a little less than double the cost of the initial upgrade, you get a little bit more than 3 times the overall HP on your shield. So this upgrade gives your commander a lot of extra meat. Whenever we are looking at shield upgrades, let's compare this with the other shield upgrade that we've evaluated, which is the UEF shield. So as a refresher, the UEF shield stats are 19,000 at the first level and 36,000 and an AoE at level 2. So the Aeon shield is considerably weaker than the UEF shield and also doesn't benefit from the fact that it's an AoE at level 2. But there is an associated mass cost difference between the two of them. So think of it as kind of a budget shield upgrade, if you will. Next upgrade is going to be the teleporter. This one is similar to previous factions. It allows your commander to teleport anywhere on the map. I really don't see this gotten very often on the Aeon Commander. The only time I've ever seen it used was an Aeon Commander just YOLO teleported into my base whenever I was air playing on Settins. I didn't even see the teleport animation because I'm blind and I was paying attention to something somewhere else. And yeah, he died really quickly because he didn't have laser. He didn't have the Chronotron accelerator from the Seraphim commander. And I was able to scramble and get up enough T1 PD to end up taking him out before he was able to take out my commander. So because the fact that the Aeon does not really have a good gun upgrade that massively increases its damage, I don't see this upgrade as being viable unless you're playing something like Black Ops or some kind of meme game, or you just want to hide your commander from the enemy after you've already lost your base, something like that. I don't see this as being super viable in competitive play. Next upgrade in this slot is the Chrono Dampener. So this is the one that we've started seeing get picked up a lot recently, and it's very strong. This costs 1,750 mass to get 52,500 energy. So It's a little more than double the mass of a regular gun upgrade, but it does give your comm an EMP attached to his back that will freeze all units in a 35 unit AoE from your commander. So if you have gun range, then you can use that as a reference for how big of an area the EMP will affect. A common misconception, or at least the misconception that I had, was that the EMP happens on gun impact, but it actually happens, it originates from your commander. So something to just keep in mind, that if you have a unit on the very edge of your range, it will only affect, the handful of units that are within your actual gun range. This is really strong because it affects T1, 2, and 3 units. Thankfully, it does not affect experimental units. That would be extremely broken. I've seen this upgrade get picked up a lot more recently, and I was actually asking Swackle in our Spring Invitational stream where I was casting with him, why this has gotten so much more often now. Because I've been playing for about a year, and I did not see this upgrade. I started seeing it about maybe 2-3 months ago, and it seems like a lot of people are starting to get it. And he said that there was, and to my knowledge, looking at the change logs, I can't see any buffs necessarily, but it's more just people kind of discovering this upgrade. So it's a very strong, very viable upgrade, can really make your comm not really do a whole lot of damage, but make it real damn irritating on the front line whenever you're actually fighting, even into the later stages at T2 and T3. Next upgrade in this slot is going to be a resource allocation system, or advanced resource allocation system. This is similar to the other RAS and ARAS upgrades that we've seen. The basic costs 5,000 mass and 175,000 energy, and it gives you 18 mass and 1,700 energy. The advanced costs the exact same, but doubles the values that you were generating, so there is a linear progression there. This is the strongest RAS of all the factions, beating out the Seraphim, who was the previous one that we had evaluated that was the strongest one. So it is a very viable upgrade if you're in the air slot or something like that, and just need a little bit of extra resources, or just looking to maximize your economic potential. Moving on to the left arm. This one we have the tier and engineering construction upgrades. These cost the exact same as other factions. They give you the same HP percentage regen, or HP pool bump, and they allow you to build fire bases on the front lines, construct T3 buildings, etc., etc. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time breaking this down. They're pretty much the exact same as all of the other commander upgrades, so we're not going to get it super far into it. Next one is going to be the Enhanced Quantum Disruptor. So this is your gun range upgrade. So it's the other half of the gun speed and range upgrade that the Aeon splits across 2 upgrades. So it costs 500 mass and 15,000 energy. It gives 35 range to your primary weapon. Pretty self-explanatory. The only thing I would mention here is that it is a longer range than the other commanders, which I believe give 30 range upgrade in their gun speed and range upgrades. So if used correctly, this is a longer range gun upgrade that you can get for your commander. Pretty powerful. Let's move on to kind of my conclusion. And I got a lot to say here, not only about the Aeon commander, but also about the Aeon faction as a whole. So this is the first time that I've played Aeon on a ladder match. I've played it in the air slot in like Setins or Canis or other maps pretty often, but this is the first time I've actually played it on the ladder, where I'm actually having to use the faction to, its entire potential. And the Aeon faction as a whole, including the commander, is, and I'm having trouble putting this to words, but the best analogy that I can use is it's like a mid-engine sports car versus a front-engine sports car. If you've driven these cars, a mid-engine sports car, just due to the fact that the weight of the engine is in a different place than in the front of the car, it can make steering and going through turns a little bit more difficult. But that being said, where the engine is actually placed, if you master turning with a mid-engine sports car, it can vastly outperform a sports car with the engine up at the front. So, I mean, you can think like older generations of Corvette versus the latest generation of Corvette. The Aeon is very, very similar in this way, where their units are at T1 are a little bit weaker. Well, actually like half of the HP of most of the other factions, but they have longer range. So they require a lot more micro. You can't just grab a force and just send it in to another enemy's force. You have to kite, you have to play it correctly and actually micro the units. So that being said, it is a very finely tuned tool, the Aeon faction, rather than, kind of a blunt force, just throw as many units out into the field as you can. For that reason, I genuinely would not recommend this faction to newer players of the game. Like, pick UEF, I think would be the best starting faction just because it's pretty good at everything. But whenever I was playing these games as a 1,000 rated ladder player, this is probably the first time I've purposely chose to play Aeon since I was like a 400 level ladder player, and I could not keep up. I just, with microing all the armies, making sure that they didn't just die because 3 strikers took on 6 Aurora. It was a lot to keep up with, and my eco suffered as a result. My T2 upgrade on my factory was incredibly delayed. I had idle factories the entire time because I was so busy with other things going on in the map, making sure that my armies didn't die. So that being said, the commander is very, very similar in the way that it's a very finely tuned tool. It's not necessarily a blunt weapon. It doesn't get 60,000 HP and can 1v1 an experimental at any real point in the game. And I'm having trouble putting the Aeon commander, necessarily giving it a core competency, if you will. So looking at the other commanders, the UEF and the Seraphim commanders can both get extremely tanky. And the Cybern commander has a lot of utility and basically meme potential with its ability to go for telemaser and things like that. And the Aeon commander seems to be a very happy medium between those two sides. So it has a shield to make it tanky, but it's not quite as tanky as other comms. It has a gun upgrade, but it takes 2 slots, which incidentally you could look at as glass half empty or glass half full. Both of the gun upgrades are a little bit cheaper, so if you want to go for one and not the other at that particular time, you don't have to commit your entire economy to a gun upgrade. The Aeon commander doesn't have attack missile, but Chrono Dampener is really cool. It also leaves you vulnerable though to air snipes because you can't have both shield and chrono at the same time. And it also has the strongest resource allocation system. So the Aeon commander seems to be kind of a Swiss Army knife between viable battle unit as well as good utility with its sensor, chrono dampener, etc. But it's never going to be able to take another commander on toe-to-toe with full upgrades, and it's never going to be quite as memey as the Cybern commander. So I really like the Aeon commander for this kind of purpose. It is kind of a happy medium in that instance, which I've said a lot of times. I'm repeating myself at this point. So let's go ahead and wrap up the video. I want to hear what you guys think. Am I right? Or more likely, I'm totally wrong. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about the Aeon commander or the Aeon faction as a whole. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.